Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today's adventure is in New Orleans. So something for all ages. Stay tuned. So I'm taking you in New Orleans to the National WWll Museum. This is definitely a must-see when you come to visit New Orleans. So without further ado, let's get started. So the main entrance, you come in, and if you bought your tickets online, you get in line for your ticketing. So this is the main lobby. Really interesting, even just right here. Landing craft vehicle. Shows the actual interactive map. And I have my ticket, so I'm going to go to the pre-purchase or will call tickets. So you get a little dog tag. So then when you get on the train, then you enter in the information for your dog tag so you can follow who you're scheduled to be following. So here we go. Thank you.
Seat. 2 per seat. In the very, very back, we can move a chair out. Oh, no, that's
So
okay.
you sit down.
I can hop over for a little bit, so that's no problem. Yeah.
Gives you instructions.
No, it's just fine. It's just like long periods of time.
Start your story. Follow your dog tag story. So we'll see how this goes. It actually makes you feel like you're on a train.
Okay, we have to
Even the seats vibrate.
I landed on D-Day with the 1st Infantry Division on Omaha Beach. Our Higgins boat hit a sandbar, and we jumped into the water and immediately went in over our heads. We struggled to make it to shore through the relentless gunfire, but all 12 of my men fought hard, and 6 hours later, we safely reached the hills.
I shipped overseas to Edinburgh, Scotland. We had to be in good shape, so we trained by walking and hiking with all of our gear. We met our first patients, British soldiers who had been wounded in the North Africa campaign. Treating these men prepared us for what bombs, bullets, and shrapnel can do to the human body.
I wrote about what was really going on in North Africa because I thought Americans didn't have an accurate view of the situation. It was not all strawberries and cream.
The men and women who served in World War II began their journey on a train like this one. You too are about to embark on an extraordinary journey. Tap your dog tag at the numbered stations to check in with your World War II individual and hear the next chapter of their story. Explore and save featured items you like to your dog tag collection. After your visit, you can access your World War II story, your dog tag collection, and other related items at home by logging into www.dogtagexperience.org with your email address or the number on the front of your dog tag. Let's get started. Tap your dog tag to the reader in front of you to meet the individual you will be following and start your personal journey.
No, you press it all the way over on the side.
Oh,
Outside, all the way over.
oh.
There you go. We try to make it as big as that part is. If you don't get all your information in, don't worry, there are places you go.
Now that you've met the individual you're going to follow, it's time to start your journey. Head to the Campaigns of Courage Pavilion to continue with the next chapter. Thank you for visiting the National World War II Museum.
The exhibits begin on the second floor. So there's elevators provided if you need to take an elevator.
Leading up to the war and during construction. And also, this building is
All right, where'd I go?
You start, I would go right where those guys are going. Right, right there, that's the home front. Leading up to the
Okay.
war and during the war. Good
All
start
right,
there.
thank you. So I'm heading to the start, which is called the home front. So let's see how this is. As you enter the first room here, it depicts really what was going on before the actual start of the World War II in our involvement. So it goes year to year, things that were happening around the world, with Germany, with Japan, and Russia, and the unrest. So it was very interesting, a lot of things to read. And the reason this is the home front pavilion is because it tells the story of how America was before the war and how so many Americans did not want to go to war. And it wasn't until we were attacked by Pearl Harbor that we went to war. So it's very interesting, and there's a lot of video clips, and I wished I could show them all, but this would be, 2 days long. So I just thought I'd show you a little bit of this video here. It's kind of interesting. It shows a little bit about how Congress did not want us to go to war, and how Roosevelt was trying to build up the support for England. And finally, we did start to support England. And then we got hit at Pearl Harbor. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. As Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, I have directed that all measures be taken for our defense, no matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion. The American people, in their righteous might, will win through to absolute victory. With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph. So help us God. So after the beginning, you go to how we respond. So the exhibit continues. And this room shows how we responded by collecting. Everybody was ready to go to war. War bonds, recruiting stations.
We are now in this war. We're all in it, all the way. Every single man, woman, and child is a partner in the most tremendous undertaking of our American history.
Hey, so if you're liking this video so far and want to see more like it, or join me on more adventures, please take the moment to like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. It helps my channel to grow, and it lets you know when there's a new release. All right, let's continue. And then we had recruitment. And here we go up the stairs to the next level for D-Day invasion. So this is an exhibit that shows a depiction of D-Day. The depiction of D-Day is very interesting because it shows a lot of what was going on up to the D-Day itself. The many plans that had to be made, the deception of the plans. And the room shows so much information, letters and equipment and pictures, and it's just very, very interesting. And you could spend a good hour in here looking at all the artifacts, the interesting movie that shows on the floor, actual plans of D-Day invasion itself. So I just was so amazed, and I could be here all day. The ingenuity of D-Day itself and the landing was pretty incredible because they had silent wings. In other words, motorless airline or motorless planes. And the planes would land, and even though it would crash, it'd have the Jeep or equipment, and that would roll out. Really interesting. In the next room is the actual landing on the beaches of Normandy. And each beach was named Omaha, Utah, Juneau, for instance. And the pictures depict on what was happening on each of those beaches and how the enemies had surrendered as they moved up into the beach. It was a horrendous loss of life, and just telling the story here was just incredible. The World War II Museum always has special exhibits, and in this particular room they're exhibiting Pearl Harbor, the 80th anniversary. So this selection is here for a few months, and it's kind of interesting to see some of the artifacts that they have here that tell the story of Pearl Harbor. After visiting the Arsenal of Democracy and the start of World War II, we crossed this bridge to visit other campaigns. On this side, we visit the Pacific Campaign and the Europe Campaign. Look over the edge and you can really see how large this museum really is, expanding over several blocks. Here's the other side. They hold extra special events over on this side as well. And when you cross over into this side, you'll notice we start studying the Merchant Marine and all the importance that they had during the World War II. So upstairs is the Pacific Theater, and downstairs is the Europe Theater. And here we start the road to Tokyo, facing the rising sun. This whole area is kind of interesting and tells you the story and history of the height of the Japanese Empire and all that they wanted to accomplish in going to war. A lot of things to read, interesting articles depicting how their Air Force was. Several artifacts, letters. They wrote home to their loved ones as well. I kind of got in trouble for videotaping, so I had to kind of walk fast through here and hide my camera. So watch this as quickly as you can, but it's very interesting. The campaign on the Pacific was amazing because of the islands and how the Japanese had dug into these islands and fighting for the ground. The Americans and their allies had to actually dig the Japanese out of there using fire, using guns, and just taking it one by one. It was pretty amazing, and it would have gone on longer had it not been for the Hiroshima. It is my earnest hope, and indeed the hope of all mankind, that from this solemn occasion a better world shall emerge out of the blood and carnage of the past, a world dedicated to the dignity of man and the fulfillment of his most cherished wish for freedom, tolerance, and justice. General Douglas MacArthur, aboard the USS Missouri, Tokyo Bay, September 2nd, 1945. Now I'm taking you down the escalator to the European Theater, road to Berlin. We will not capitulate. No, never. We may be destroyed, but if we are, we shall drag a world with us. A world in flames. Adolf Hitler, March 1945. The Allies, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin. The Axis, Mussolini and Hitler.
The American people are calling for immediate retaliation against Japan. Meanwhile, British and Soviet allies are pleading for help to counter the Germans. Where should the United States attack first?
You talk about fighting when you're back in training, but this is the real thing. This is where you see people dying. Takashi Kitaoka, infantryman, U.S. Army. They were the enemy, and they started this war. We meant to get it over with as quickly as possible. Elmer Wolf, pilot, U.S. Army, Air Forces. It had been horrendous. I turned white-headed at the age of 22. John H. Luckadoo, pilot, U.S. Army, Air Forces. We had braved the enemy in his own skies and were alive to tell about it. Paul Tibbets, pilot, U.S. Army, Air Force. No other war in history has so definitely lined up the forces of arbitrary oppression and dictatorship against those of human rights and individual liberty. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, April 1943, a letter to his own son John. For an extra $7, I obtained tickets to go see Beyond All Boundaries, showing exclusively at the National World War II Museum. It's a 4D journey through the war featuring dazzling effects, CGI animation, multi-layered environments, and first-person accounts from the trenches to the home front. The museum-produced experience is narrated by executive producer Tom Hanks, and it was 4 years in the making. Absolutely stunning, and something I would highly recommend on your visit to the National World War II Museum. Next, I went into the Boeing Center U.S. Freedom Pavilion. As you walk into the pavilion, your eyes are automatically drawn upward to the aircraft floating in the air. You can take an elevator up to, I believe it's like 4 floors up there. You can see way up at the top and look down on the aircraft itself. Some stories on the far side there. I did not go into that room there. That's the final mission, which is the submarine. And I just ran out of time, but this whole place is amazing. We have some stores that you can buy souvenirs, keychains, magnets, shirts, umbrellas, hats, you name it, they had it. Just some really mementos that you can take home. And as you leave the National World War II Museum, you're greeted with a statue. We have faith that future generations will know here in the middle of the 20th century, there came a time when men of goodwill found a way to unite and produce and fight to destroy the forces of ignorance and intolerance and slavery and war. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, February 12, 1943. Well, I hope you liked that adventure. The National World War II Museum is really, really a nice place, and you can spend several days there and still see something new each time you go. There's always some new presentation, or just like the Pearl Harbor was for a few months commemorating for the 80 year. So anyway, thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, because Joe Knows Adventure, New Orleans, in, around, and beyond. Bye-bye.